Hello my friends! In today's video we will take a look at the Nikon ZR. The ZR is the first camera made by Nikon that the company itself describes as a video camera. It is also the first Nikon device with some technology and knowledge provided by Red, which is now owned by Nikon, as you certainly know by now. It also uses a lot of technology introduced with the Z6 III, including the semi-stacked sensor, but there is also a lot of new stuff going on. In this video, we will take a look at the performance and the feature set of the Nikon ZR. The first and possibly the most striking aspect of the ZR is the shape. It is very flat and the shape is very brick-like, but in a good way. It can definitely be described as a small camera. It is 13.4 cm wide, about 8 cm tall, and the thickness is 5 cm. In practical use, the decision to choose this size and shape has two advantages and one disadvantage. The first advantage is that it is a very small camera if you use it with no accessories, which makes it very travel-friendly and even suitable for vlogging and that kind of stuff. The second advantage is that this shape is a very good starting point for creating a camera rig, since you don't have to deal with any irregular shaped parts of the camera, such as the grip and the electronic viewfinder. The disadvantage is that if you use it with no accessories, the ergonomy is not great, especially with larger lenses, so that is indeed a compromise. Much like with Nikon ZF, the packaging of the ZR is quite impressive, since we have a full-frame sensor, in-body image stabilization, and battery placed perpendicular to the sensor in a very compact camera body. It is weather sealed to the same standard as the Z6 III, and it uses a magnesium frame. The weight is about 630 grams, so it feels pretty dense and I can certainly say solid. The approach to the ports and the controls is rather specific, but we will get to that later. So the ZR is the second Nikon camera to use a partially stacked 24.5 megapixel full-frame sensor, and much like with the Z6 III, it largely determines the overall capabilities of the device. The main purpose of partial stacking is to offer significantly higher readout speed in comparison to non-stacked sensors, but at the same time avoid the very high cost of fully stacked sensors. Being a video camera in the first place, one of the main benefits of the stacked sensor is the low rolling shutter and the fact that it can shoot full sensor 6K 60p. We kind of take that for granted after the Z6 III and the S1 II release, but this kind of capability used to be well in the 5-figure territory just a couple of years ago. Besides the high-end use with R3D and all of that stuff, much like the Z6 III, the ZR will also be used to shoot straight out of camera footage, and it is very good at that. Nikon's default colors are very nice, pretty natural, and definitely on the colder side, but I certainly like them. The resulting footage is very nice in terms of both details and colors. It shoots non-RAW video in H.265 in 8-bit and 10-bit, but always in 420. There is no option to shoot H.264 or H.265 in 10-bit 422, which is a bit of a shame. The noise reduction in H.265 is also on the strong side, which will probably suit the straight out of camera type of use, but if you want footage suitable for color grading without shooting RAW, there isn't really any middle option with the ZR. Automatic ISO is also still mandatory with all exposure modes except full manual. Again, much like with the Z6 III, Nikon's approach to using that partially stacked sensor is to prioritize the readout speed over the dynamic range. Here I will say right away that I did not conduct any scientific measurements. There is an incredible video from CZ explaining all of the technical aspects of the sensor, and I highly recommend watching that. The long story short is that you are indeed getting incredibly low rolling shutter for the price category, which can be very clearly seen in my test as well. And that brings us to the main highlight of the ZR, which is the RED, R3D and E RAW format. As you probably know by now, it is not the same thing that you will get with actual RED cameras. This is 12-bit RAW instead of 16-bit RAW, and the ultimate capabilities are not that much different from the NRAW, but importantly, you are getting RED's color processing and also their specific highlight recovery feature embedded in the image processing pipeline. R3D on the ZR utilizes Log3G10 workflow, which gives you quite a lot of options in terms of flexibility and the approach that you choose to utilize the latitude of the files for the final delivery. Unfortunately, I still use Premiere Pro, but even here I can get the full red RAW options. In the real-world use, I have found the dynamic range to be solid. There are mirrorless cameras that can capture more dynamic range in the RAW video files, but not with the same rolling shutter. The dynamic range and the rolling shutter is not the whole story though. I can definitely say that the R3D and the Log3G10 makes a big positive difference in the workflow. First of all, red LUTs work really well, so you can simply drop 709 LUT onto the footage and you will get really nice, almost straight out of camera footage and colors. The second positive is that the behavior of the shadows around the noise floor is much better in comparison to the NRAW, since the colors will stay pretty accurate even if you need to recover a lot of shadow detail around the noise floor. These files are simply nice to work with, and the R3D-NE is definitely not a gimmick. It makes a difference, and despite that dynamic range penalty, I think that most users will be very happy with the R3D-NE files from the ZR. The ZR also has dual native ISO with bases at 800 and 6400. Unfortunately, there is no option to shoot OpenGate with the ZR, which is a bit of a shame because a lot of independent filmmakers need to post vertical content nowadays. Despite that, I can say that the ZR is a very capable video camera. The ZR has one CF Express Type B slot and one microSD slot. CF Express Type B is an obvious choice, they are very fast and increasingly affordable. Importantly, you can shoot everything internally, which is always the most convenient way. The microSD slot is mostly suitable for stills or loading display LUTs, and it is certainly better than having no second card at all. Nikon generally doesn't offer backup writing to both cards when shooting video. It is not clear why or whether that will change in the foreseeable future. During my testing, I haven't encountered any overheating issues with the ZR whatsoever. The ZR can shoot stills and the output will actually be pretty much the same as with the Z6 III. It is more than usable for BTS pictures, for example, but if you are interested in hybrid use, I would definitely go for the Z6 III, mainly because of the ergonomy, which is completely video specific with the ZR. The autofocus also seems to be carried over from the Z6 III. It works very well in usual sensible situations. In those situations it will be smooth and pretty fast with no hunting. It actually worked really well even in some of my more extreme tests, such as this one with the SD card. In other difficult situations, such as this one, it still gets slow, but it maintains accuracy, which is certainly a better option than hunting. There is an option to choose the responsiveness or the lock-on behavior of the autofocus, but I would like an option for even faster subject switching. The face tracking works really well though. I am generally quite happy with the autofocus. It is not the best one out there, but if you use it for any sort of reasonable situations, it will be reliable. The in-body image stabilization is rated for 7.5 stops, which is actually half stop less than with the Z6 III and the ZF, but I can say that it performs really well. An important change is that the default mode is now the sports mode. I used to complain that Nikon stabilization in video likes to fix the image in place and then snap when it reaches the limit, but that is not a problem in the sport setting. The IBIS is much more predictable in this mode, and you still have an option to use the normal mode, which will indeed do its best to fix the picture in place. Nikon also offers really effective digital stabilization, which is particularly useful for walking and also quite predictable, so it is also very useful for situations such as filming in car and so on. Overall, I can say that the stabilization is a strength of the ZR, especially considering the size. Regarding the handling of the ZR, it is indeed very specific and definitely geared towards a specific style of video use. As I mentioned in the beginning, there is pretty much no grip, which is great for rigging the camera, but not great for run and gun style of use, so you will definitely want to use cage or L bracket for that. The controls are also very minimalistic. You have the front and the rear dial, importantly a joystick, 3 function buttons on the top, a recording button on the front, and that's about it. There is no button for the main menu, so to access it you will need to long press the button for quick or function menu. The ZR really wants you to control it using the touchscreen. That is also what the serious cinema cameras are doing these days, so I am glad there is an option to have these kind of controls in a much more affordable camera. Fortunately, the user interface on the home screen is very well thought out. You can change the exposure settings, set the audio levels, start the recording, and launch the function menu using only the touchscreen. My favorite feature of the interface is the display menu, where you can adjust the screen brightness, turn all kinds of display assists on and off, display level or guidelines, and even turn display LUT on and off. This menu is a great idea and it definitely makes the life easier. The main menu is what it is. As you might know, I am still not a friend with Nikon's pencil menu, which is for example where the autofocus lock settings or display LUT options are hidden, but the good news is that once you set up the function menu properly and maybe my menu, you will spend very little time with the main menu. One more thing that I want to mention here is that the ZR turns on and off extremely quickly and the whole user interface is very responsive. I would have preferred the on-off button on the right side though. The display is by far the best that I've ever used on any camera. It is a 4-inch display with 3.07 million dots and 1000 nits brightness. It is big, detailed, accurate, and bright. It is a pure joy to use, the touch functionality is great, and there is nothing that I can complain about. It is definitely one of the highlights of the ZR. It uses a rotating or articulating mechanism, which can be an issue because the connectors are on the same side as the joint, so the cables may get in the way. If you want to use an external display with the ZR, you will also have to use micro HDMI, which I personally don't mind that much, but it is certainly not the most popular type of connector out there. There is no electronic viewfinder on the ZR, which is completely fine by me. The ZR uses the usual EN-EL15 batteries. The battery life is a bit difficult to measure since the percentage is not available, but you should get about 150 minutes of 4K 25p HEVC video on a full charge, which is actually a very good result considering that the display is probably quite power hungry. The camera can be charged through USB-C at 10 watts, which is pretty solid, and it can also be charged while in use. To sum up, the first thing that I have to say is that I am very glad that Nikon took this first step towards fully utilizing RED assets in their mirrorless lineup. They also got a lot of stuff right on the first try. The implementation of R3D RAW makes a big difference in the overall workflow, and it makes the ZR an easy entry point into RED's ecosystem. The shape of the ZR is very rig-friendly, and the overall approach in terms of the handling and the controls also mimics what we can currently see with modern 5-figure cinema cameras. Whether it is what you are looking for or not, it is great that a camera with this approach towards the controls is available in this price range. The video specs itself are great with up to 6K 60p R3D RAW. The dynamic range is solid, but the decision to prioritize the rolling shutter is somewhat limiting in this regard. The display is excellent, it is weather sealed and very compact for what it can do. The autofocus is solid, but there is also some work to be done there. The in-body image stabilization works very well, and so does the electronic stabilization. OpenGate video and anamorphic features are not available, which is a bit unfortunate. 10-bit 422 H.264 or H.265 video would also be very nice to have. Despite that, Nikon ZR is a very capable mirrorless video camera which has already found its user base. I am sure that Nikon will continue their journey into the world of video and cine. RED certainly has a lot of technology to offer, so I am looking forward to see how will Nikon utilize their new assets in the future. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.